Ooh, we're gonna get that 333 start. How's it going, everyone? Let's make sure. Cool. Sound and audio is good. Well, welcome to a earlier rendition of Spiritual Experience Wednesdays. I have some things to do at our usual time, so we're starting up a little bit early. But mirror scrying is something that I've kind of seen an uptick of people talking about, and I feel it's really important to drop some knowledge on this could potentially dangerous, practice. So ultimately, mirror scrying, for those that aren't aware, is using mirrors or reflective surfaces as a divination tool. And what you can do with these is see past lives, you can see people, you can look into certain events and things of that nature. And I have actually dabbled pretty heavily into this. And I'm going to use three examples just to kind of show the overall scope of, this tool and potentially resource. Now, I will say the third one is more of a not necessarily an intentional practice using the mirror scrying technique. It just kind of happened and it wasn't done in a protocol or anything like that. It was just more so an ask and you shall receive from life. But with this one especially, I really have to just say use your tools of discernment very wisely when it comes to mirror scrying because it does open up technically a portal. Mirrors historically, especially like black mirrors and things like that, they've been a more of a dark arts type of tool. It has been something that has, I would say, from some folks that I know in the spiritual community, lied to them and shown them things that aren't true. And that's led them down a path of misfortune. So, the first thing that we're actually going to start with this is how to protect yourself when doing this type of technique. Now, when in doubt, Christ it out. That is like the first and foremost thing that I always like to say to people. And whether you have a personal relationship with Yeshua the Christ or the Christ, Jesus, whatever you know them as, I highly recommend you use the name anyway, because it has a certain power and weight to it just from their own beingness that it really does just set the tone straight. Now, if you are not one that is aligned with Christ, you can try to do things under your own power. I know I did personally in the very beginning of my spiritual search in this realm of experimentation. And because I didn't really have a personal relationship with Christ. And because of that, I didn't feel comfortable using it. And it's really all about your will in this sense. Now, when you are speaking from a place and position of power and knowing, then your words carry weight. And if you don't have that familiarity or that confidence, then they don't. And then you're not protected. So, when in doubt, Christ it out's number one. If that's not your vibe, then you always, 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 even when using the Christ, I always call forth and evoke my gatekeepers and my guardians. Now, your gatekeepers are going to be the ones that are technically like all of these are angels in some way, shape, or form, but they're the ones specifically mounted with the task of protecting you from portals. And it's really important that you call them out because, again, they're going to stand on guard. They're going to protect you. Now, your guardians, as the name goes, they guard you from kind of like the happenings in the personal sphere. So I call forth upon assistance with my gatekeepers, my guardians, my guides. And then your guides are going to be the ones that, again, also are like another layer of just security. And from here, you can call on your angels, archangels, whatever's clever for you. But you want to make sure that you get the three G's. So gatekeepers, guardians, and guides. Now, from there, I usually just like to ask my angels of protection, my teachers, and all my loved ones beyond the veil. I call in a protection around me and my space. Now, it's important that you clarify between you and your space because you can say, oh, protect me. But if you don't have that caveat of saying my space, then something can still kind of chill within it. And who knows what you can let out. And this is again why I say like use this stuff wisely because it is a tool and you are messing with things that I would say go beyond the normal. And then you're into the woo. And when you're in the woo, the waters run deep and you just don't want to get caught slipping. So it's always best again have that protocol and that security measure and proclaiming it from that place of confidence and strength and ultimately intention. Now, that's kind of one of the things that you really need to, I would say, practice outside of the mirror scrying technique is cultivating like a really strong like convicted energy of like direction. And what I mean by that is like your visualization and really just your stillness, your focus. And I'll probably make a future video on like how to develop and train your focus. But if you're really busy internally and there's a lot of craziness going on, I don't recommend doing this technique at all. Because the more shaky that you are, the more shaky that your invocation and your proclamations are. And when you're declaring from a place of weakness, it's like trying to fill a bucket up with a net. There's going to be dribbles of water, but you're not actually going to fill it up like if you would a cup. So that's pretty much how you protect yourself. And then in the end, I always say, in Christ's name, call him this protection. Amen. So you got when in doubt, Christ out, number one. If not, you got your 3 Gs, your gatekeepers, your guardians, your guides, then your team, and then your intention. So you're calling out what you're seeking, and then you say, please show me this. And then again, in Christ's name I pray. Amen. So we get into it now. So with the first, I would say, dabbling that I had with mirror scrying, it was curiosity driven. So I simply just asked to see myself in the future. And needless to say, after I did the protocol and called them protection, I really just stared at myself in my eyes. And that's pretty much the technique that I use. But you're eye gazing with yourself. And from there, I started to see things shift. I started to see wrinkles coming up. I started to see all sorts of things within my beingness start to change, from like my hair color, texture of the skin, but like right around here pretty much stayed the same. And from that, it was kind of like a silver fox figure that I had met years previously in some happenings and some breath works and things of that nature. And it was trippy. It definitely freaked me out because I didn't really know if any of this stuff was real or not. But being able to see myself as like aged and seasoned, I was like, okay, cool, this works. Now, a play off on that one is my second experiment was just to kind of see other people that I've been, and like, reincarnation aspect. And then same thing happened, staring at the eyes, and then face and things start to move around. And I started to see a few different people. Nothing really super notable. And it was always interesting just to see again, because the positions and like the shape and like that essence of the eye was the same in all the faces. Now, the second cool experiment I did was with my current love. And we did a dabble of like a microdose of psilocybin and had a container. And our intention was really just to kind of like show us what we need to see. And we were sitting, like I was on the left, she was on the right. And looking in the mirror, mine was essentially just showing me all the different versions of myself, carrying like the masculine energy and being in the male embodiment. And it was trippy. I think we were just dropping in with that ceremony for like a few hours, but it really just started to, I would say, like my face itself had the same, like eyebrows were different in a few of them. I gotta do this way, get used to the mirroring turning on the camera. So it was pretty much like the same bridge of the nose and then like the eyes around here. And it was just cycling through different people. And with each person that it was cycling with, I felt a different energy and just kind of like almost like a knowing or a download of different like life lessons and themes. And just to see how much the spirit has been refined into the embodiment that I am now. Now, while hers was going on, I saw some stuff shifting, and then really I just saw like a bunch of bright light. And I would say, like when her body started to get kind of covered in the bright light, I was fully into like it was just face, 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 different person. And the vibration of my body started to kind of get intense. So like the whole mirror itself started to almost ripple and wave and kind of like pulse. And then when we were talking about, our breakdowns after, I was actually able to see what was going on for her, which was trippy because I wasn't expecting that. I was just expecting to see her, but actually seeing the things that she was experiencing in her own visions and seeing like the glowing and like the radiating and some of the shifting, it was pretty nifty. And it definitely brought us closer together in that sense because it was in a container of just like relating and getting to know one another. And like, has there been essence and semblances of us throughout time, which kind of like checked out? Yeah, there has been. Which brings me to the third tale of mirror scrying. And then after I kind of talk about these three, I'm going to kind of circle back to like my experimentation with it a little bit more. And then we'll wrap this up because I actually have stuff I got to get going to do. Need some time just to settle in and transition. But my third, no protocol, nothing. It was based off of if you haven't checked it out, it's actually the first Spiritual Wednesday experience. It was my encounter with Yeshua. Shortly after meeting the Christ and like full on energy and feeling, and actually that first taste of really encountering like Yeshua, it it kind of had me shook. Not in a way that was like scary or anything like that, but it kind of cracked open my heart like significantly to the point of I was really reflecting a lot on my life and all the moments where I've actually met Christ before. And I kind of just right over your head, you're not ready for it, you're not ready for it. But the numerous times where I've pushed that away is like, no, it's the Christ consciousness within a lot of new agey stuff. I've been in every cul-de-sac. So that's one of the reasons why I think it's important to talk about this stuff, because there's a big distinction when we try to embody Christ consciousness, but we don't want to have a relationship with the Christ that will always lead you astray and will always lead you into some crunchy situations and obviously self-absorption. So I was having these ponderings with Christ. I was having this experience and then all relating all the different experiences in my life. And throughout every time I've met Yeshua the Christ, I've never been able to see his face. It's always been like in a hood, in a cloak, always been really just like illuminated with light that I could never see his face. And I just wanted to look into his eyes. And I was meditating and I just like stopped my meditation because I kept feeling that like brotherly, just loving, supportive energy that the Christ carries. And I just like jumped up and went to the bathroom and I was just like calling out to like the sky. Like in my bathroom, I was like looking up the ceiling. I was just like fervently, just like and fiercely. I was like, Christ, like I just want to know what you look like. I just want to see your face. If I could be like, so pretty much I don't like to command things. So I was very much like, if I can be graced right now just to see your face and what you look like. I have a feeling I know, but it's been distorted every time. So like, please, can I see your face? And as I like drop my head down in the mirror, it's just kind of like instant meditation state kicked in. And I see my face begin to shift. Um, like my eyes kind of moved a little bit. The shape of them changed slightly. There's a little bit of differences in the cheek. Nose definitely a little bit different. Beard texture changed. I had my hair down at the time. Like my hair started to get like look a little longer, and it was darker, different color, and my skin started to get like a lot darker, and the eyes started to get like I have like try to show you. I have pretty trippy eyes when it comes to colors, and I have like all the different colors in them. But they started to get even more like it's the way is like vibrant. Like it's hard to frame it. Like just wildly more like poppy. Like they just popped like crazy different colors, but they started to pop. And when I kind of like phased and saw the warping end and like de-softened the gaze of my eyes and like focused and looked, I saw the Christ. And then I started to cry. And then it went away. But it was one of those things where, I hadn't done any type of like mirror scrying from that experiment for years. I'm talking like at least 2 years. I haven't done anything like that. And to have it happen just from a conviction of the heart was to me beautiful. And it was no effort. It was kind of just like the taking over your authority and divinity of just being able to use this world and playscape to your heart's content. Like this is a playground, this is a sandbox, and we're here to sculpt and play and do all the things. And Creator has always intended for us to step into our spiritual authority. But the biggest aspect of this is always connected to your heart. So it was wild for me to experience that. And when I was done, I was kind of just like ear to ear grin, like, thanks. Like, I appreciate you. Um, But yeah, so it was really cool for me just to like see Yeshua's face. And in previous iterations of the experiment, I mentioned like the first one, seeing myself aged and then seeing myself as other people. After that, I only really dabbled with it like maybe two or three more times, other than the experiment that I had with my partner, and that was crazy because the other times were always related to next week's topic, which is myself when I actually started to get downloads and glimpses of, and I don't know what it really is to this day, like really, whether it be incarnations or just aspects of different lives that I've like simultaneously lived. And I'll be diving into a little bit more why I think it might be like a simultaneous thing, and that connectedness of, your soul doing oversoul things and kind of managing different puppets. Um, because some of the timings of it felt a little bit more modern than I would assume. And then some of them were also very ancient. So when I asked to have confirmation on those, I was indeed shown the person that I was in that download and vision and healing, which was wild because again, like it was four different people and two of them were in one session. And then, yeah, so it would have been three sessions then. And then it was an individual and an individual after that. And other than that, that's mirror scrying, yo. Like it's a tool. It's definitely a tool, but I will also advise and just say it is something that is opening up a portal if you're not right and coming correct with your protocol. And I have seen and talked with a few folks and also just listened to a few different stories. Because again, I always do research before I do any of this type of stuff. You got to educate yourself. And there have been situations and instances where people have invited things into their space. And as I mentioned earlier, also kind of lied to them and brought them into a path of just chaos and crunchiness. And for myself personally, I don't like to deal with that stuff. So I always like to come with an honor, a reverence, and a respect to the other world of the woo and the spiritual life. So with that, I feel complete in that. Let's see where we're at in time. Yeah, bang that out. Feel good with that. And yeah, as I mentioned earlier, this is kind of like a little soft segue into the experience for next Wednesday. And I'm excited to talk about that one. When it comes to mirror scrying, again, like I've just seen some things come up and people talking about it and using the black mirrors and using the different, reflective things to do some divination work. And I feel like it's really important to understand that you don't really need it. Um, yeah, I'll dive into that for a moment because, especially after the experience that I had, like the unintentional one with seeing the Christ, got a lot of downloads on it. Because again, for me, I'd always had this association and this kind of like seriousness that I needed to do this and this and this and this and this. Um, but ultimately, it wasn't necessarily like protocol that brought it about. It was the emotions and I guess the intentions and the real desire. And I find that that is that aspect of like faith, trust, and also the force of will that plays a huge role in our construct of reality. Is if you are really like, if your heart and your soul is like burning with that like aspiration and that desire, that yearning for something, it will be cultivated because everything works in charge and you can clear things away naturally because of what you're seeking if it's something of like a high enough vibration or if it's of a pure frequency. And for me, I guess seeking out the Christ is like the highest thing that you can get. um yeah, and to have that happen like that, it changed the way that I looked at mirror scrying and things of that nature. And I should say, like the one thing about mirror scrying and just like using the quote unquote black mirror devices and things is I think a lot of these are kind of also akin to cell phones. I feel that there is some portal happenings with that. And I guess I'll close with this little story that happened somewhat recently. And by somewhat recently, I mean like legit, like 2 weeks ago, like tops, like maybe three at the most. But I was, for me, I should say, one of my guilty pleasures is reading manga. When it comes to being on the phone, it's manga. Like I'm reading some Shonen Jump, I'm catching up on some things that aren't on Shonen Jump, and because I like anime and I like to read the manga, I like to read the source material before I watch the show. So I was reading a manga and it got to a point where it was so good. And I didn't want to put it down, but I was like, I had to respond to a client. I had work to do. And it was at that point where I put the phone down and then within like a second, my eyes just went right back to it. And my hand was instinctively going to go pick it up. And when I unlocked my phone, like I felt like tiny hands and it didn't flash the time. It just stayed, it was still black. And I just saw and felt like these hands like energetically like coming up from my phone, like trying to grab my face. And that shook the shit out of me. Like, not gonna lie. And it was actually around that time that I was like, oh yeah, I should talk about mirror scrying. Because that's really what it reminded me of, is that we are low key giving ourselves like open access to the realms and portals of mirrors and reflective surfaces like that. And I think it's really important just to be mindful of, like, in ancient times, they would say, they would use these blackened mirrors, purest reflection, things of that nature. And that's the modern day cell phone, folks. So if you aren't, calling in some invocations for protection and just things like that with your phone, then I highly recommend you do. I've never felt anything that I would say bold and like aggressive coming from my phone before. And I'm human. I've doom scrolled before. I've done all the things that we've done with phones, but I've never once experienced something so brazen and ultimately like out of pocket. Like, that freaked me out. So I always just say, when it comes to any type of like reflective surfaces, anything like that, like, remember, it's a portal, it's a gateway, and we are co-signing things off with our free will. So if you're not doing something to protect yourself, then you about to wreck yourself. Um, that was cheesy, but it's true. Like, I think one of the biggest traps of the modern day is that, from computer screens to cell phones to just even like just basic mirror work, like, people are so comfortable with opening up these gateways that can really lead you to some intense ruin. So I just implore you, like, do so wisely, have intention, call in your protection, and come correct in everything that you do. Don't get caught slipping, because when you make these mistakes, you can have things anchor onto your spirit. You can have things anchor on to your physical body. You can have things anchor into your space, and it can cause chaos. It will cause crunchiness and weird misfortune. So ideally, I think I'll close with this. Ideally, you cultivate your meditation and prayer practice, because one of the things that and one of the main reasons why I kind of like stopped scrying as much was because, and only used it to confirm those visions, was because I started to get visions and downloads on things just through meditation. And I didn't need a physical medium to show me. And that's why I was shocked with Christ Yeshua in the mirror. But it was one of those things for myself where, time and time again, I've cultivated my own practice of being in that stillness and communing, and I would say conversing, having dialogue with Creator. And through that, you get downloads. You get to be shown visions and things of that nature. Got a little tongue tied, but ultimately, you don't need a physical medium to do these types of, I would say, like, or to receive these types of downloads and gifts and results from divination. That we are like the greatest divining tool, because we have the breath of life. We have the spark of Creator, and through that, we can do what we want in this playscape. And I've known for myself personally, maybe I'll talk about dowsing in one of the videos for next month. Um, I've used dowsing and nail on the head with stuff, calling things in. And gosh, it was probably like a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago now, that I was dowsing in a morning ceremony, just kind of like talking with my team, being like, hey, what do I need to know? Is there anything that I need to be aware of? And as the dowsing started to come in, it wouldn't be me waiting for like the letter or the word to come all the way through. It would just be like a hit. And then I started to actually recognize that my spiritual ears were opening, where I was actually able to fully hear. And it's not like hearing, I should say that. It's like a knowing. But I started to actually get those messages coming in like downloads, just like rapid fire. And the dowsing ended up being kind of a crutch. And one of the things that I've received, I should say, is the dowsing got me to a certain point of receptivity, to the point now it was like, you don't need this to like have that relationship with us and to work with us and to hear us. All you have to do is just ask and then listen. And that's kind of how it's been now. And even with dowsing for direction, because there's sometimes where I'll lose things, misplace them. And I would douse and be like, hey, where do I gotta go? And I could feel it pulling towards certain areas. And now it's time, it's kind of like the point where I can just feel it with my body. And I was just say, like, all right, body, take me to where I need to go. Just kind of like close the eyes and then just feel the first pulls. And it would take me to exactly where I'd left my wallet or my keys. So everything is a tool. And the physical world itself, I should say that if we rely on those things, it's a crutch. Now, it can be a tool, kind of like, um, like the extra wheels are for a bike when you're learning to ride. But after a while, you don't need them. So it's very much so the same thing. Like you can do these things, but you don't need to do them. And with that, I feel complete. Don't forget to smash that like. And if you've had any of your own experiences with mirror scrying or those types of visions and downloads, I would love to know about it. And with that, thanks for dropping in. May the fruit of knowledge offer a seed, and in that seed may your love, will, and intuition give life and nourishment, for a tree shall grow, and in its shade may you find peace, and offer peace to all who ask. Namaste. I battled it out than you. I love you so much. And I'll drop in with you Sunday. Still been sitting with what I am being called to speak upon and unpack with y'all. So once that gets received fully and it's anchored, I will post the link for that. All right. I love you. Peace.